Welcome to War Bios, where we delve into the most pivotal battles in history, dissecting the strategic decisions, tactical innovations, and human dramas that shape the course of warfare. Today, we're going to explore one of the most decisive conflicts of the medieval era, the Battle of Hattin, fought on a scorching summer day in 1187. This battle would prove to be a turning point in the struggle for control of the Holy Land, pitting the Christian armies of the Kingdom of Jerusalem against the formidable forces of Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt and Syria. The Kingdom of Jerusalem, established by the Crusaders in 1099, had been a beacon of Christian power in the Middle East for nearly a century. However, by the 1180s, the kingdom was facing numerous challenges, including internal power struggles, dwindling manpower, and the rising threat of Muslim forces under the leadership of Saladin. Saladin, a Kurdish Egyptian warrior-statesman, had united the fractious Muslim emirates of Egypt and Syria under his rule, creating a powerful coalition that threatened to engulf the Christian strongholds in the Holy Land. In 1185, Saladin began to exert pressure on the Kingdom of Jerusalem, launching a series of raids and skirmishes along the border. The kingdom's response was hampered by internal divisions, particularly between the ruling monarch, Guy of Lusignan, and the powerful nobleman, Raymond III of Tripoli. In the spring of 1187, Saladin launched a major campaign against the Kingdom of Jerusalem, assembling a vast army of some 30,000 troops, including infantry, archers, and cavalry. The Muslim forces marched northwards from Egypt, passing through the Sinai Desert and into the Jordan Valley, where they began to lay siege to the strategic fortress of Tiberias, held by Raymond III's wife, Ishiva. As Saladin's army closed in on Tiberias, the Kingdom of Jerusalem's leaders were faced with a daunting decision, whether to march to the relief of the besieged fortress or to remain on the defensive, protecting their own strongholds and waiting for an opportune moment to strike back. Guy of Lusignan, eager to prove himself as a military leader, opted for the former course of action, assembling a large army of his own, comprising knights, men-at-arms, and infantry. As Guy of Lusignan's army assembled at Sephoria, they were faced with the daunting task of marching to the relief of Tiberias, a distance of approximately 25 miles, through the scorching summer heat of July 1187. The army was largely composed of heavy cavalry, infantry, and men-at-arms, with estimates suggesting around 20,000 troops, although the exact number is still debated among historians. On July 2, 1187, the Christian army set out from Sephoria, marching eastwards towards Tiberias, with the sun beating down relentlessly upon their armor-clad bodies. The march was grueling, and the army's progress was slowed by the harsh terrain and the need to protect their flanks from Saladin's skirmishers. As they traversed the dusty plains, the Christian soldiers were forced to endure not only the blistering heat, but also the constant harassment of Muslim archers who showered them with arrows from a safe distance. The Christians' own archers and crossbowmen attempted to respond, but their efforts were largely ineffective against the agile and mounted Muslim horsemen. On July 3, 1187, as the Christian army approached the horns of Hattin, two rocky outcrops that dominated the surrounding landscape, Saladin's forces began to converge on the battlefield. The Sultan had carefully chosen this location, funneling the Christian army into a killing zone where his own troops could exploit the terrain to devastating effect. As the Christians deployed their forces, they found themselves trapped between the two horns, with Saladin's army arrayed before them and the burning sun beating down upon their backs. The battle commenced in earnest, as Saladin's infantry and archers began to soften up the Christian lines with a hail of arrows and stones. The Christian knights, weighed down by their armor and struggling to maneuver in the confined space, were initially unable to respond effectively to the Muslim onslaught. Meanwhile, Saladin's cavalry, composed of lightly armored but highly mobile horsemen, began to encircle the Christian flanks, preparing to deliver the coup de grace. As the battle raged on, the Christian situation grew increasingly desperate. Their armor, once a symbol of strength and protection, now became a liability as the heat and exertion took their toll on the weary soldiers. The army's formation began to break down, with some units attempting to charge forward while others fell back in disarray. Guy of Lusignan, realizing that his army was on the brink of collapse, ordered his knights to regroup and prepare for a final, desperate charge. In the midst of this chaos, a small group of Templar knights, led by the order's master, Gerard de Ritfort, attempted to break through the Muslim lines and reach the safety of Tiberias. However, they were swiftly cut down by Saladin's cavalry, who had anticipated this move and were waiting in ambush. The Templars' bravery was admirable, but ultimately futile, as they fell victim to the Sultan's clever tactics and the harsh realities of the battlefield. As the Templar knights fell, the remainder of the Christian army found itself increasingly encircled and desperate. The sun beat down relentlessly, sucking the life from the armored warriors, while Saladin's troops continued to press their advantage. Guy of Louisfort's final charge, though courageous, was ultimately doomed to fail. The Christian lines broke, and the army dissolved into a chaotic rout. Panic set in as soldiers scrambled to escape the killing zone, only to find themselves hemmed in by the horns of Hattin. Saladin's cavalry, sensing victory within their grasp, cut down any who stood in their way. The battlefield became a scene of utter carnage, with the once proud Christian army reduced to a fleeing mob. In the end, it was not the Christian knights who emerged victorious, but the cunning and adaptability of Saladin's forces. The Sultan's clever use of terrain, combined with his troops' mobility and firepower, had proven too much for the heavily armored but slow-moving Christian army. As the dust settled, Saladin surveyed the battlefield, his eyes taking in the scope of his triumph. The Crusader army lay shattered, its remnants fleeing in disarray. The aftermath of the battle saw Saladin's forces capture key strongholds, including Tiberias and, eventually, Jerusalem itself. The city, which had been in Christian hands for nearly 2 centuries, was reclaimed by the Muslims on October 2, 1187. The consequences of Hattin were far-reaching, marking a significant shift in the balance of power between the Crusader states and their Muslim neighbors. As historian Stephen Humphreys observed, the Battle of Hattin marked the end of the Crusader kingdom as a major military power. The legacy of Hattin can still be felt today, with many regarding it as a turning point in the history of the Middle East. The battle is remembered as a testament to Saladin's strategic genius and the bravery of his troops. In modern times, the Battle of Hattin has been the subject of extensive study and debate among historians. Some have sought to analyze the tactical decisions made by both sides, while others have explored the broader cultural and historical context in which the battle took place. As the centuries have passed, the legend of Saladin has only grown, with many regarding him as a heroic figure who embodied the values of chivalry and honor. His victory at Hattin remains an enduring symbol of Muslim resistance against the Crusades, and his name continues to inspire pride and admiration throughout the Arab world. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.